Hey Grant, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Hey Joe, doing well. Beautiful Friday here. Thanks for having me on.
First, please tell us a little bit about yourself, Grant.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, Grant Hosticka, obviously my name, grew up in the Chicagoland area. If anyone out there is from the Chicagoland area as well. Actually went to school for drones, believe it or not. You can do that these days. From there, worked in the utility industry and then came and joined DJI, where I'm currently leading our solutions engineering team here in North America. DJI, as a whole, as a brand, a lot of folks know, worldwide leader in small unmanned aerial systems, drones. Also have different divisions of the company on the agriculture side, the automation side, driving as well. So company is continuing to expand, but obviously drone side is what a lot of folks know us for.
So today we're here to talk about the Matrice 30 series. Can you tell us a little bit more about this product?
Yeah, if you're familiar, I guess, with the DJI product line overall, it was a bit of a decision before where you're looking at portability, quick to deploy, or performance. Something like the larger M300 series, you had the greater performance capabilities, something with a Mavic, that's something more realistic to put in the back of a patrol car to take with you. So trying to really bridge the gap there and bring a drone with all three options.
So who would be the primary customer for the Matrice 30 series?
For this specific product, I think it's a bit more focused towards our public safety customers and those who may want to be completing inspections. Obviously, surveying and mapping is a big part with DJI as well, with photogrammetry and LiDAR. However, the sensor, though you can complete mapping missions with it, isn't necessarily meant for precise measurements, survey grade data. What it does bring is this payload with the high quality zoom camera, wide 640 by 512 thermal, and a laser rangefinder, which lends itself quite well to both finding or seeing defects, objects, people, and then on the flip side, being able to identify location with that laser rangefinder or distance.
All right. Well, it sounds like exactly what you're saying, like a heavy focus on public safety, but then can be used for some surveying and different things like that. And it almost, looking at this payload, it almost looks like the H20T for the M300 in a way.
Yeah, very, very similar. We saw a lot of success with that payload and positive feedback from the users. Obviously, you see it's gotten smaller, so engineering has been working hard on that, but they aren't that good where the whole payload has been shrunk down. The image processing module is on board the drone itself, which allows the payload to be a bit smaller. Fortunately, you can't swap payloads out, but there obviously are decisions that need to be made there. So yeah, it's very similar to that H20T payload. So you see similar visual performance of the zoom camera, wide camera. And then on the thermal side, though, it is a 640 by 512 sensor as well. What you do have on the software side is actually an upsampling of that through our AI software. So you get double the resolution when you're viewing it as the pilot.
What challenges were you trying to address for your customers with this product?
I'd say, I think about that, would really be deployability at any time, like when the drone was needed.
Great. So let's talk about how the M30T addresses some of those challenges. Could you dive a little deeper into some of those features that help with that?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess first on the hardware side, when we're talking about being able to deploy it at any time, the big one is IP rating. You can fly the drone in the rain. It's pretty important where you can fly the drone when you need to, if there's an emergency on site. If we're going post-storm and maybe there's still some rain on the infrastructure side or public safety search and rescue mission, you can't necessarily dial up when those things are going to happen. We talked about the thermal software upgrade earlier, and we also have the FPV optimized for low light. So if you're flying in those darker conditions, you're going to have an easier time seeing any potential obstacles or obstructions there from the drone's FPV camera. On the software side, the zoom camera, we have our night scene option, which is a bit of a marketing term for IR cut. similar to a like a security camera you'd see in the parking garage. When we remove that IR filter, we might let more light in, and you get a black and white picture, but you're able to see more. So that night scene option helps as well. And then you talked about the laser rangefinder as well, just easily being able to share information with the team. Even if you're not able to see it with the visual camera, you have your thermal camera there. You can easily mark locations with those pinpoints. So we talk about deployability at any time. You can really deploy this drone as needed. Granted, there is some specs on the wind side, but still up to 33 miles an hour. Have a lot of room there.
So what would you say the M30T has that really separates itself from the competition?
Yeah, I think, like when you look at overall performance and cost, the drone does quite well. And as you mentioned, really does a good job in providing value to the customer. I mean, circling back to on the laser rangefinder you brought up, that's not something you see readily available in other systems on the market. So I think that's a big plus. Expanding on that pinpoint capability, if you're looking at something during an inspection or during a mission, you can drop that pin with the software, continue flying around, moving around, and with the click of the button, bring the camera back to what you were looking at, or share that GPS location out with team members as needed. That information is also in the metadata of the camera itself. So after an inspection, if you wanted to see where you were looking at with the camera, you can go ahead and reference that. And then finally, the laser rangefinder also helps the zoom camera focus when we're zooming in and completing other software features like the high-res grid. And the camera takes automated zoom photos in a grid pattern for you, so you don't have to zoom in and take individual photos yourself. How that's focusing in part is through the laser rangefinder. So the laser rangefinder overall is another product separator on top of the value and performance you're getting that hopefully people can see.
So let's talk about what it takes to ramp up and be able to operate the M30T.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I would say the transition from like a consumer DJI drone to one of our enterprise systems, generally speaking, is a fairly easy move up. As you know, it's hard to say, as training is so important to give a specific timeline on that. I could walk out to the field and teach someone how to fly it within an hour and they'd be okay. But obviously, the days and years really build that expertise in aeronautical decision making. So through our software, we try to make it as easy as possible. When you're opening up the camera, you have to go through the checklist view, make sure you set all those values correctly, like our return to home altitude, max distance. We have adjustable sensors on all 6 sides of the aircraft, so you can determine how close you want the drone to be able to get to different obstacles. So overall, there's a lot built into the drone to make sure that you have a safe and successful flight. But always, even myself, room for improvement on aeronautical decision-making side.
What does the lifespan and maintenance look like for this product?
I think one of the positive changes we've had based on user feedback is our maintenance program on the DJI side, with the idea that you'll be able to continue using the drone into the future, similar to the Matrice 300 series. So with that maintenance program, we have a basic, standard, and premium maintenance plan. And depending on the number of hours you flew in the drone or time span, there's different recommendations there. So we have that directly on the maintenance section of our website, a little slider you can toggle. And then obviously the folks at Drone Nerds are versed there to help out on the maintenance side as well. So I think that's one of the benefits there, where you can actually have key components replaced as needed, for example, at 900 hours, and continue to use that drone into the future. You also have the health management system on the drone itself, alerting you of any issues. And then I think one big benefit too when we talk about maintenance is the battery station. So on this battery station, you have the ability to charge the drone batteries up to a storage level, so you can easily leave them at a storage level. And then you have the quick charge option to go from 20 to 90%, or you can just go all the way up to 100%. But if looking at like a half hour going from 20 to 90 or 50 minutes all the way up to 100 from 0, gives you the ability to store more batteries at a proper storage level and elongate the life of those batteries. So a lot of different options and items there on the maintenance side to help with the longevity of the product.
So are there any accessories, hardware, or software that user needs to really get the best out of the M30T?
So first item would be, I guess, just mounting on the drone itself. We have a payload SDK port on the top. So as DJI, we aren't making any specific attachments for that, but through our SDK, we're enabling third-party developers to do so. So there's spotlights, there's speakers, there's onboard computing modules, and there's more items in development from third parties as well. So that's very nice. I've tried out some of these myself, and they do a good job. You can tie the pitch of the spotlight for multiple payloads to the drone gimbal itself, tied to the custom buttons on the RC as well. We just released an update where you can speak into the RC and then the speaker can broadcast it. So really doing everything on our DJI side to make sure the developers have the ability to develop the payloads that users want. And they've really come through with some good solutions that I've seen thus far. On the software side, we have our DJI Flight Hub 2, which is currently free in public beta right now. You can think about it as a live operations center. You can do real-time 2D mapping. You can get a live video feed from the drone. You can pull up 3D view of the map to see elevation, where the drone's at, what the laser rangefinder is looking at, and then kind of that two-way communication if you want to draw lines, pins, or polygons on the map as the pilot or at the command center, you can share those between the two devices. We're building on route planning on the Flight Hub 2 side as well. So the idea is for your base live operations, there's some tools there that are quite useful. If you're looking for a more vertical industry specific, where it takes it to kind of a next level of customization and capabilities, that's where we have our mobile SDK and some great developers there that are working on or have already added the Matrice 30 series to their kind of product suite. So excited to see that as well. On the DJI side, we want to provide kind of a base software package for those base needs, but it's great to see the third-party developers on the SDK side really building on that and being able to help programs provide more value, track maintenance, flights, reporting, all that good stuff.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Hush Hush docking station that's coming out sometime soon, and maybe a little bit more about the different variants of the M30 series?
And information has been, I guess, a bit sparse on that, so glad you asked. I actually saw the first M30 dock drone
Yeah,
yesterday.
nice.
But it still does have removable batteries. You can think of everything being the same. Just on the bottom back legs of the drone, even though they're little stubs, there's just little terminals there. So when it lands on the docking station, those terminals connect and it's able to charge the batteries. Technically you could fly it like an M30, but obviously you would just purchase the regular M30 there. So
Sure.
quick differentiation there. You need to buy the dock version if you wanted to use it with the dock. But generally speaking, I would say we're still looking at next year before that's generally available for purchase. But really excited on that side. We have our DJI Airworks conference coming up here in October, and certainly anticipate having the dock there to do some of our first live demos here in the US.
All right, so are there any other products DJI is working on? Could you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yeah, I guess perhaps the dock really is the focus, where we've kind of announced it and are working on continuing to build that out and making sure we bring a mature solution to market that folks have come to depend on DJI for. So moving forward, that's definitely a big focus for us on the DJI side, the dock. Fortunately, can't really speak to too much else here in the near term, but I will say, even with the M30, M300 side of things, part of our flagship, enterprise drones, and we're continuing to update and build on those through the firmware side, even though the drones themselves have been released as well.
All right, so big open question. What do you see for the future of this industry and what's next?
Overall, it's not going to be as quick as maybe some people would like, but as we've seen some recommendations come forward in regards to beyond visual line of sight operations, excited to see that kind of come to fruition, where folks are able to take creative solutions such as staying close in a corridor of power lines to complete beyond visual line of sight inspections. I think that will continue to enable operations, whether it's from a dock or from a pilot, where you can have a more efficient flight overall. So looking forward to that in the upcoming years. I know it'll be smaller steps at a time, but really excited about that future.
All right, Grant. Hey, thanks again for your time, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk more about the Matrice 30 series and ask some detailed questions about DJI in the future. Thanks again.